Hi, my name is Karley Smitherman, and these are my thoughts on this week's broadcast of Hope for Tomorrow. The broadcast opens in Knoxville, Tennessee with Evie and her husband. They had just arrived at the hospital for her head injury. She is getting scans and being tested for her head, and she disappears. Well, all of the hospital staff and her husband go looking for her. In the midst of this chaos, the scene switches to Monica's apartment. She had just left eating dinner with a coworker, and she has a stalker. He sneaks into her apartment, and when she arrives home, he abducts her. He wants to take her to a mansion, I guess for like a date. And he knocks her out, and they're in the car, and she comes to in the car, and she sees a ghostly figure in the road. Well, she starts freaking out, and that causes them to have a wreck. Well, he disappears, and she goes and finds somebody's house, and in the midst of that, it switches to Mr. Boykin's house. Mr. Boyster, I'm sorry, his house. And he is in the company of a convict. Her name is actually Rosalind, but she is disguised as Sabrina. He is actually a widow, and Sabrina and him are going through all of his wife's old clothes and dresses, and she's trying on his wife's dresses. And he just gets caught up in the moment and starts imagining that Sabrina is actually his wife. And he wants Sabrina to call him by his real name, not by Mr. Boyster. Well, that's pretty much where this episode ends until next week. I have 3 main points that I want to point out about it. Well, first, I thought it was kind of hard to follow since the broadcast is in episode 40 and I am a first-time listener. I had to watch it more than once to understand what was going on. But after I watched it, I kind of understood what was going on and was able to go with the flow. And secondly, I want to point out the acting on Mr. Boyster and Monica's parts. I thought they did a really good job, and it came out very naturally. And her reactions to being abducted, I just thought she did a really good job. And lastly, I want to point out the sound effects. I thought it was really cool how, although it is a live broadcast on the radio, that y'all are able to incorporate sound effects for the car and in the car crash. That was my thoughts, and I can't wait for next week's broadcast.